Our moderator for this session is Juanita Clark, founder and CEO of Digital Council Africa. You heard her yesterday moderating another fantastic panel and taking part in a panel on talent strategies for ICT companies. So she's going to come up on stage shortly. Juanita, let me also invite Utpal Bhowmick to come up on stage. Utpal Bhowmick is the Senior Director of Sales at MEA for Hughes Network Systems. You heard from him yesterday in the Solution Showcase as well. Let me also invite to join them Anatory Lelo, who's the Head of Sales, Government and Regions at tiGO. Anatory, also please come up on stage. Also joining them will be Dr. Adedoyin Adeola, Chief Network Engineering Officer at Airtel. You also heard from him on a panel yesterday. And rounding up this panel in fine style is Martin Mutiiria, who is the Sales and Business Development Director at WIOCC. So we have a moderator and 4 outstanding panelists to take us through the next 45 minutes on robust broadband networks. Juanita, over to you. And again, a big round of applause for our panel, a second panel of the day on robust broadband networks. Thank you.
Morning, colleagues, and welcome back again. Sorry, I think I shouted there. Everybody awake now. As Madan said, my name is Juanita Clark. I work for an industry association called the Digital Council Africa. It's a great pleasure to be here with my colleagues this morning and to just discuss a little bit of, robust broadband networks, looking a little bit ahead, some of the things that are happening within the network stack, and how we can potentially sort of improve on this and just in general look at what we can expect going forward. And this morning I want to start, Utpal, you sitting next to me, I'm going to pick on you this morning and just jump out the blocks. We see that there's like a major trend in the growth of data, and I just want to ask you, so what are some of the things that's driving this exponential increase in data?
Well, thank you. So good evening, everyone. Before I answer the question, I'd like to start with a quote from one of the major telecom players, telecom heads in India. So data is the new oil. That's all. So how did data become as precious as oil all of a sudden? How, basically coming back to your question, how was this influential growth? So if you see, I mean, from my opinion, one of the major factors is coming from basically the mobile bandwidth growth, the use of mobile bandwidth, so mobile broadband so much, and of course the 5G expansion. Yeah. Everything that we do nowadays, from banking to your e-learning to schooling, is all on the mobile and our connectivity on the and with 5G, the kind of speeds that are increasing, obviously the uses are growing up, and this is a kind of driving. This is one of the major factors. Now, other than this, I believe the video streaming is another factor. There's a lot of content on YouTube nowadays and other platforms like TikTok and social media, Facebook, all youngsters are all scrolling up, and there's a lot of content as we are moving, we are swiping, and we are streaming a lot of content that way. And then beyond that, if you look at this, we have a lot of use of cloud services. Everything is cloud nowadays. Everything is on demand. You upload and anything you want, you download it, use it. And it's not only used for by organizations for work, but also there's a lot of remote work that is being done with cloud and file transfers. And even the meetings are now on Zoom or after pandemic, everything is on Zoom. So that's another factor that's driving the data growth. Yeah. Now, if you see, there's also a lot of IoT and smart devices and smart city program that's driving. But the final factor that I will say, it looks very small. I think it's the e-commerce and mobile transactions that we've all seen. I mean, I was amazed to see the M-Pesa revolution in East Africa. We've all seen, I was in Kenya last week, in Tanzania, M-Pesa and obviously all the Airtel money and all this thing. Everybody's doing transactions and it's probably very small KBs of data. But if you look at the volume of transactions, the millions of data, it aggregates to a lot of data usage. So that's what is driving the data usage. And I would say, coming back to my initial statement, data is the new oil. That's it.
And I think, and I know that we've sort of exhausted the COVID conversation, and I really don't want to go back there, but I think COVID was this immense accelerator. In the first 6 months of 2020, e-commerce grew by 600%. Just, the tremendous uptake. But Dr. Adeola, I just wanted to, did you want to add something, Utpal, before I give it away? Did you want to say?
No, like I said. Yeah,
cool.
that's
Okay.
good.
Dr. Adeola, I just wanted to then also ask of you. So, what are some of the connectivity options that, offering resilience and innovation? For instance, I know we mentioned satellite, which there seems to be a little bit of like mass hysteria around the satellite across the African continent. Like even in South Africa, everybody's like, Starlink is the messiah that is coming to save us all from the digital divide. But what are just some of the connectivity options that's offering resilience and innovation in the networks, including maybe Open RAN?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
I guess you're used to that. So, on a lighter note, talking about the connectivity options and in terms of the resilience and innovation, right? I have my discussion point on my phone here, right? And all of a sudden now, my phone just went blank. Why? Because iOS is installing Apple is installing 18 on my phone. What does that mean? I put my phone in my pocket. I will have to rely on something else, which is what I know in my head and in my brain. That's one of the things that resilience has to do for us. Just putting it in perspective, we talked about the Open RAN. Let me drill further in terms of the Open RAN. If you look at the Open RAN architecture itself, it has come to jailbreak most of the MNOs from the vendor shackles. I had to use that word. Simply because, for an example, let's look at 3G as a case study. You have your node B, right? Your node B is connected to a controller. What that simply means is this. When you are in a vendor A, node B of vendor A must be used with a controller of vendor A. You will not be able to move out. And whenever there's an hardware issue, you have no option other than to what you stuck to vendor A. But when Open RAN came in, simplified the architecture, I can use any vendor hardware. And it is also what we call the software defined architecture, meaning that I am completely jailbreak from any of the vendors. What am I saying is this? There's a resilience from that perspective, from cost and vendor perspective. I can easily move. As a result of that, I can take a cautious decision. What do I need to do? Talking about satellite is fantastic. And if you look at looking at the types of the connectivity we have from the satellite perspective, we have the GEO, we have the MEO, we have the LEO. But I have a good news for everyone here today. The good news is this. LEO, which is the low Earth orbit, one of the best things that it has brought to the table is that latency. Because when you look at satellite, why satellite, people are refraining from satellite because of the cost, not only that, from technology perspective, the latency is high. The capacity that it can give to us is also limited. And when we talk about the connectivity, it's being driven by the consumer. People want more at a faster speed so that they'll be able to enjoy what they are downloading or what they are watching. As a result of that, we, people that in the other ecosystem, we need to provide this to them in an affordable manner to ensure reliability and to ensure consistency. So satellite come in because anywhere, for example, if you're in area where fiber cannot get to, microwave cannot get to, the other option for you to enhance the connectivity is satellite. LEO today can give you 50 milliseconds. It's actually rivaling with microwave. And the capacity can give you up to 315 Mbps capacity. So what that simply means is that you can have the resilience connectivity mirroring different flavors, be it microwave, be it fiber, be it satellite. So the good news that I'm about to tell every one of us here today is this. We do know, I did mention it yesterday, that 2Africa has come to Tanzania and is being piloted by Airtel Tanzania, PLC, and the government. We provide huge capacity, low latency. Also, what is coming up is our own satellite. We rivalry with the Starlink, and it's coming to Tanzania as well. Airtel, Africa, we have a collaboration with OneWeb. We also partnership, we're also one of the owners of OneWeb, and OneWeb is coming to Tanzania. And once that comes in, that means the only way for you to stay put, to ensure your connectivity end-to-end, so that there won't be any form of issue for your connectivity and reliability of your services that you're offering to whoever, your customer and consumer, is Airtel Tanzania PLC. And that is what we intend to do. So to summarize, connectivity options, interconnectivity options, Open RAN has given us, as MNO, option to jailbreak ourselves to be flexible. Likewise, it's also given the consumer ability for us to provide the solution, the connectivity required in different places, being in the rural area, at an affordable services or cost. And the satellite itself is also another flavor to be able to ring fence this connectivity we're talking about. And we are positioned, meaning Airtel Tanzania PLC is positioned to provide that as well, in conjunction with what we've already done. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you, Dr. Adeola. Anatory, I just want to ask you then, we're talking about all this technology that is available, and there's like so many layers in this connectivity stack that we can now use, but that also then, puts like a big burden on our skills, available skills. And this is like, it doesn't matter where in Africa you go and you have this conversation, we're always talking about the skills deficit and how do we manage this? How can we, organizations, ramp up this? How do we even stay on top of this change?
Thank you so much. Good morning. I agree with you. We still have a gap on the skills availability in our continent. And organizations need to take some initiatives to make sure that at least we bridge the gap. And one of the initiatives could be, having a continuous learning culture within the organizations, making sure that employees be able to to upgrade their skills with the emerging technologies. So that could be one of the initiatives to be done. But another one is also to have some mentorship programs. The skilled, staff can be able to attach to junior staff, so at least they can be able also to equip their skills and go with the trend of the technology in the market. Another initiative that I think also is important is for the organizations to be able to have partnership with colleges or universities. I've seen in a lot of universities we have some innovation centers where there are very good students there with a lot of innovative ideas. So if we can partner with them, I think to be able to capture those talents on time, and also having some internship program with them, and then organization could be able to have some skilled employees from that space. But also we have some tech hubs, I think, in many countries, where also the organization will be able to partner with them. Another initiatives, I was trying to think about, the strategic partnerships with some global firms, which can be able also to give access for the organizations to have access to advanced trainings with these emerging technologies. So around that, I think could be a good way for us to bridge the gap. But also with the staff that we have, I think also it's important, to reward the skills. So to create a clear, career path for our employees. So at least it intensifies them to be able to upskill themselves day to day. So I think those could be some initiatives that we can take and eventually be able to bridge the gap.
Yeah. Thank you. Just want to move to your left. I don't know if there's a mic, if we can. There's one there. Okay. I wanted to ask you, are there tips or words of advice? How do we safeguard the reliability of these networks, especially in more complex environment?
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Before I answer that question, I just wanted to add on to the first question on the connectivity options. I think my colleague did justice to the options on the Open RAN and satellite. But I wanted to add on the fiber side because that's where we play. So other than, I think we all agree that most of the markets in Africa, the most difficult part is the last mile. So you find that there's a lot of investments in the submarine cables, in the national networks, but as you go closer to the end users, then it becomes more complicated, especially the fiber. So one of the things that we are doing as WIOCC is something we call open access metros. So we've already piloted this in Nigeria, where we building a network, a metro network, and open it up to access to the ISPs. We know many ISPs in Africa are very aggressive in terms of trying to sell their services to the customers, but they lack the capex to actually invest in a robust network. So what we are doing is we're actually partnering with them by availing the metro, which they don't have to invest any capex, which we can do, and then they can use that network to reach the end users. So that's one way we see playing a part in enabling the last mile connectivity in the Africa markets. So once that takes off, we expect to see more and more ISPs that just focus on their core business, which is serving their customers and not necessarily worry about investing millions of dollars in building networks. Now, now back to the question about the safeguarding the resilience. So what we think is happening is a lot of operators, national operators, tend to want to own the network themselves and gain a competitive advantage, which sometimes works in the opposite direction because at the end of the day, the more money you put into the network, at the end of the day, it will be passed on to the clients. So for resilience, one of the ways to do this is to actually partner with your other operators. In the wholesale business that we are in, most of our partners actually cut across as customers, competitors, and suppliers. So what I mean is, if you have to build a national network that is resilient, you can actually decide to do a co-build, for example, with your other partners so that everybody benefits from the investment and lowers the cost of rolling out the network. But again, everybody has a redundant network. So, but if you just want to have your own linear network and then the other person the same, you find that not only is the networks going to be very expensive, but then nobody has redundancy. So you get a lot of cuts, and then there is no failover. So one way I would advise players is to work together, and this is not just in building fiber. In Kenya, for example, we have our national network is well developed, I think, at least for the major cities, Nairobi, Mombasa, and towards the borders. So what operators are now starting to do, and we encourage this, is if, for example, I have a line system on one fiber network, maybe by one fiber owner, then I can talk to the other operator to do the same on the other network. And then we can swap the capacity so that I have my capacity on both lines, but I've only invested capex on one line, and same as the other player. That way then everybody has a robust and resilient network without necessarily duplicating in building multiple line systems.
Thank you. It's really interesting. It makes me think a little bit about the whole, build it and they'll come. There's a lot of conversations around it. Do we chicken or egg? Do we first build and hope they come, or do we wait for demand to surge and then it gets taken by somebody else? So, Anatory, I just want to come back to you for 1 second. And I want to ask you, we see that there's for me two sides of the coin. There's almost like nothing in the middle. There's people that really drive demand, and then we're struggling with digital readiness on the other side. Is there still a case to be made around digital readiness? Just if we refer to the maturity of consumers, to adopt all these digital services? And then also just, if you can just touch on government's ability to, and what that potentially could do for consumers and you know, shifting demand.
Thank you so much. So I think there's still a case. In Tanzania, for example, I can tell you the adoption is going very well because a lot of government services now, you can find them online. So, but again, when you look on the consumer side, I think there's a lot we need to do in terms of giving them awareness on how they can be able to access these services online. I went one day in one of the government office. I get find, you know, a long queue of, people, you know, want to get a service from the counter. So I asked why these people are here, and we have everything online. So it's like they're not so much comfortable, you know, to go online and get the service. So it looks like also the trust is actually not there for them to be comfortable to access the service online. So it's something that we need actually to work around and create that awareness, but also having a trust, you know, for them to believe that when they're online, they're safe and they can be able to access all the services they want. With this again, of course, for Tanzania, for example, we have Data Protection Act, which now this also give confidence, you know, to the consumer, at least their data are protected. But with this, it will also be able to accelerate the adoption. But on the other case, I think also on most of the areas we still need to invest on infrastructure, especially on the rural areas, where connectivity might be a challenge, or network availability could also be a challenge. There are several initiatives within our country, of course, with WIOCC initiatives. We are doing a lot with that. But we need to continue doing that, you know, government on the side, but also the private companies also need to look into those areas and be able to invest. The demand is there. When we do that, I think we can create the whole ecosystem for all the e-government services to be online. Not only government, but also a lot of other companies now. Every service is online. I don't remember when was the last time I went to a bank, because I do everything on my phone. So with that, I think we can be able to accelerate the adoption within the country.
Yeah, but it's got to be a combined effort between public and private.
Absolutely.
To drive it. You know,
Absolutely.
if we don't take hands, then you know and you know, government's got a role to play. Utpal, I want to ask you just a little bit more, just to come back more to the technical side of the conversation around if we look at the robustness of broadband connectivity and you know, uptime, quality of service, all of these things. Are there partnership strategies that work? Have we learned some hard lessons about what doesn't work? Have you got a viewpoint on that?
Right. So the partnerships that work, I mean, the strategies that have worked, like I mentioned, public and private partnerships with the government and telecom. We've seen in East Africa, Kenya and Ethiopia, where basically government has partnered with players like Safari Telecom to robust connectivity and broadband partnerships. So those kind of partnership between the ISVs and telecom players and government giving subsidies, that's important. Another strategy that has worked is basically to bring the costs down. You need to have infrastructure sharing. You need to have common infrastructure, and including teleports, satellite teleports, and you know, the submarine cables and all. The other thing is what is also important is the international collaborations. We've all seen the submarine cables, the East Africa submarine cables that have been there. That kind of connects the East Africa from Nigeria and all the neighboring countries to the rest of the world. Those have been, I think we need more kind of those kind of initiatives, with international collaboration there, in the fiber to boost the connectivity. Now, to make the connectivity more robust. And I think as being a satellite guy, you cannot keep satellites out of the network. That's one of the alternate technology. I think he spoke about the latency factor. So we have satellites with GEO with high latency, but with LEOs coming in, like it's not only Starlink actually. We have OneWeb and all. The latency is becoming very, very affordable. We have less than 70 milliseconds latency on LEOs, and then of course that's very close to some of the fibers, which are like 30 to 50 milliseconds, which are so it's not very different. And we've seen a lot of issues like for submarine cables, the fiber cuts that have come with the disruption of the submarine cables, the fiber cuts. Satellites are a good backup connectivity as well as to bring the traffic from a remote site to your data center or to submarine traffic. So that kind of bridges the gap in connectivity, the satellite collaboration. And I think finally, we also have these community models where you can have one infrastructure, one tower or one site, and you can have some kind of community Wi-Fi around. People can buy small packages. That also kind of boosts connectivity. You can buy small packages, recharge packages for accessing, let's say, WhatsApp for 30 GB, or you can have one 10 GB download, or that kind of packages. So those kind of also boost connectivity, and connectivity all out, robust connectivity in the rural area, especially these kind of community where it's not a lot of infrastructure, just sharing and some hotspots, Wi-Fi that you put around. So those kind of community model where the local community takes care of the whole thing, you empower them with the technology. That has also worked. These kind of strategies have worked to boost your connectivity.
Yeah. I just read in the press yesterday that in South Africa, they launched a $5 a month uncapped service now in the rural communities on fiber. So it's interesting that, globally people keep talking about the expensiveness, but in Africa we seem to be like, just give us something and we'll sort it out over time. We'll make it fit, we can make it fit. Dr. Adeola, I just wanted to ask you as well, are you seeing any shifts in this digital infrastructure evolution? Is there, as we are here now and looking at the future, do we expect things to radically change, or is it going to be more of the same?
Thank you very much again. From my own perspective, and having a crystal ball to the future, things is going to change, right? And today, remember, sometime like 3 years ago, everybody's talking about 5G. Now 6G is coming, right? And that is true, it's coming, there's no doubt about it. So the only thing that is constant from technology perspective is changes. So what is actually driving this? I keep on saying it and I'll repeat over and over again. What is driving it is the consumer. It's the services that they're expecting. And how are they going to satisfy getting those services? And how can the likes of the MNO provide those services in an affordable manner so that it will be a win-win situation? Looking at 5G, for example, 5G itself is more or less like a silver bullet to take care of one, huge capacity that is demanded from video and etc., all this IoT that we're talking about, AI. And it also comes in to fix the problem of latency. Because when we're talking about the driverless car and all those stuff, latency plays a critical, important role, and e-medicine and etc. So 5G itself, it gives us the capability to have ultra-low latency. Number two, it gives us the ability to be able to have a lot of machine devices at the same time, thousands of it together. And lastly, the third thing that it gives us is that broadband. We call it EMLBB. So looking at that from that perspective, 5G has actually come to play its part and help us to solve that problem that is coming in our face. And I also see a situation where we need to begin to move, and a lot of, the industry, we're moving towards the core part. Because we talk about latency. Latency is end-to-end. When you fix latency from the RAM perspective, you got to fix it from the core perspective, because the more the content is closer to the user, the better it is for them, and they will be able to do what? Ask for more, and it's even easier for you. That's affordability, how you're going to project the cost benefit to them as well is critical. So I'm looking at a situation whereby we'll begin. I was very happy when one of the gentlemen was talking about the CD, and that's the content, the caching. We begin to look at edge computing. All our core is getting closer to us, and that is going to be a big thing coming up in the next coming weeks or months. Other thing that I'm also seeing has to do with all these data center, Mutiiria. Before, we more or less centralized our data center. You know, in the last 10 years, you only have one data center, everybody coming together, we do whatever we want to do, but now we're more or less decentralizing because we're also getting services closer to the user. So data center is going to play a big role, and I'm very happy that the C2C have done justice to that because there's a lot of conversation regarding that. And where do we come in as an entity, meaning Airtel PLC Tanzania and the government? We actually position ourselves to be able to do what? Support this drive. From data center perspective, it will be very difficult for you having your data center, 2 or 3 of them across the country without solid connectivity to the outside world via the submarine. We know we have like 2 or 3 coming to Tanzania. 2 Africa has come to be able to play a bigger role to ensure the resilience. So that we'll be able to do what? Mitigate any form of unavailability and etc. issue that can come in on that. And also, I see from MNO perspective, we begin to look at virtualization. What do I mean by virtualization? You know, remember we talk about the Open RAN. Open RAN is more or less doing justice to the RAN perspective, where you'll be able to have the access part plus the node be in a single box and the controller in the single box. Now we're moving towards the core part. Because in the core part, there are a lot of entities. Let me just give you an example of one of the entities. We have the MME, that's Mobility Management Entity. That one takes care of the control and the user and the, the mobility part of the 4G. We also have the SGW, we have PGW, we have the HSS that talks about the home location register for the user, the subscriber-based data management. All these entities coming together, we have different boxes. As a result of that, we as an MNO, we're looking at an option of, we're spending a lot of money on this. Why can't you have a situation whereby we're able to club them together? Because for one of the entities, I begin to negotiate with one vendor. The other one, I negotiate with another vendor. So I have like 5 vendors to play with. You understand? It doesn't really make sense for me to do this kind of thing. So why can't I get one vendor or 2 vendors that will take care of my hardware? I have one single hardware, the box is there, and I begin to virtualize all the application for those entities I talked about. And I begin to run what I call the software-defined network. Everything is based on software. Whenever there's an issue, I am free to be able to take a decision on which vendor to do and what needed to be done. And that's going to help us because the more we operate in an efficiency manner, the better for us to provide that service in an affordable manner to the user so that they can continue to enjoy the services. And lastly for me, has to do with the cloudification. Most of our entities, especially from Airtel perspective, we're more or less centralizing everything, as I said, with the SDV. All our hardware, from the core perspective, is being centralized in one box, so that we'll be able to have I call it an agile architecture, so that whenever there's a problem, we know what to do to be able to solve it. So, in summary, these are the moves that I'm saying. The move is moving. I mean, the journey is going in a very fast manner towards the core. We need to take the content closer to the user so that we can guarantee scalability, we can guarantee affordability, which is very important. We can also guarantee resilience for connectivity and availability. And more important, the security of the data itself, we'll be able to guarantee it. Doing all these things, I see that the future is bright for us. And those are the things that I see for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Dr. Adeola. Just my next question, I think, Utpal, I think it's both for huge networks as well as WIOCC. We need a lot of fiber. And we're going to naturally need a lot of fiber to develop the entire technology stack and 5G. And I mean, we just said like now, you know, the ITU is beginning to talk about at the next World Radio Congress, they're discussing 6G standards, and you know we're still grappling with like, how are we going to solve 5G? And the one thing that we do know, if we cut the spectrum conversation out of it, is we know we're going to need a lot of fiber. You know, a 5G network is not a mobile network anymore; it's a fiber network. You know, and we've got to get everybody's minds on that. And 6G up to 10G is going to ask for more fiber. So both from Hughes as well as WIOCC, do you think we're getting there? Because it feels like we and especially 2024, I don't know if I'm losing my marbles, but it felt like we slowed down in 2024, that there was a bit of a, we were wheel spinning a little bit. We do a lot of research, and I look at the research and the growth of the fiber networks, and it feels like it's not as rapid as we'd like it to be. Do we have, how do we move where we get to the point where we can say we've got adequate fiber in place, and especially if we look at the value chain, what needs to happen in the entire value chain? Have we got the products? Are they being delivered? Local manufacturing opportunities, all of these things, maybe from yourself as Hughes, and then maybe from WIOCC. Same question.
Okay, so let me start. Based on, if you look at the progress of the fiber deployment, yes, I think there has been progress. But we heard in the previous panel, somebody spoke about the national optical fiber backbone network that is in Kenya. I think those kind of initiatives are more required. There has been progress. We've also spoken about the East Africa submarine cable network, which is there. But then fiber still poses challenges. We'll need, like you said, we'll need a lot of fiber over, actually we'll need a lot of connectivity. It's not fiber. So so we'll need a lot of connectivity, but of course, fiber still poses a lot of challenges. You cannot, taking it to rural areas, the permissions, the kind of cost that is there. And one of the consideration of putting a fiber, I was just speaking to somebody and I'll quote him, you want to build a road, but you don't want to build a road in an area where there's one car. You don't want to build a road for one car. That's just waste of taxpayers' money. So there's a business consideration there. So the way to fill up the gaps is alternate technology. Like satellite is one of the best way to fill up the gaps in connectivity. And obviously you don't need to build a full infrastructure of fiber to take it to each house. You have satellite connectivity. And we have, like as Hughes, we have a lot of alternate technologies. We are bringing in, we have our traditional geo networks, but we are bringing in a lot of low-cost K-band through YACLIC, through Eutelsat Connect here, which are giving very affordable satellite plans, broadband plans. We are also working with Leo with OneWeb, which is all. So all these again, which is probably again very affordable internet, high-speed internet with low latency that will be available. So all these alternate technologies need to be considered, because fiber will take time to grow, as well as no amount of fiber will always be enough. As we move from 5G to 6G, connectivity requirements will keep increasing. So we'll need alternate technologies to bridge this gap, and satellite are the major answer to it. It also answers not only enterprise broadband requirement, the rural expansions, the backhauling. You need to have 4G. Right now, 5G is urban areas, 4G is more ruralized. You want to get 4G to rural areas. Tomorrow, we'll have 5G in the rural areas. How do you do it? I think the satellites will be the high broadband or the high throughput requirement. And maybe we'll need, like I said, a lot of government, some subsidies, some USO programs, some funding from maybe World Bank or UN organizations to have this, to bridge this digital divide. So some private funding will help in this case. Okay.
Thank you. So I think I'll address the second part of the question about what we need to do to get there, to have enough fiber, or at least to accelerate the growth of the fiber networks. So my view is the best way to do this is collaboration. And it's not just about having a lot of fiber. It's actually having the fiber in the right places and avoid duplication where it's not necessary. In Nairobi, for example, you'll go to the fiber to the home space, and you find that in one place where it is looked at as a high value market, you find in one apartment we've got 4 or 5 cables running on the same side of the road into that building, because everybody is trying to capture that market. But whenever there is maybe something happens on that side of the road, all of them are down, all the 5 of them. So to me, that is not a proper way to invest, because first you're duplicating the resources, and then it's not serving any resilience purpose. So what I think should happen is that all these players should come together and plan a network that serves them and also provides them with the resilience. I have seen this work where mobile operators have actually done core builds to the fiber to the tower. Most of the time, the towers are either the same tower or close to each other, so they don't see the point of one operator digging all the way to their towers alone, and then the following week, the other operator doing the same. So if they could come together and say, perhaps plan a route A for operator A and route B for operator B, and then both of them can swap fiber cores on those routes, then it serves both lowering the capex for both of them and also increasing the resilience. Now, when it comes to long-haul fiber, that works, and I think it can be extended to metro fibers as well, especially now that there's a lot of growth in the FTTH market in Africa. What we see is if you leave this entirely to competition without collaboration, you'll find areas with what I would call too much fiber, and then other areas with no fiber at all. Again, that's where now maybe the public and private partnership comes in. Of course, private companies will be driven by profit, so they are not going to invest in an area which they deem maybe doesn't give enough returns. So we need to see how the governments or the local governments can come in and create an enabling environment for these operators, maybe by lowering the barriers to entry, other than just focusing on the areas that can generate revenue for the operators. So it's both collaboration among the players and also the government involvement in terms of public-private participation. Another thing that I think our African governments need to think about is the cross-border fiber, because we see a lot of countries focusing on developing their national backbone without any discussion or collaboration with their neighboring countries. And then you find that maybe you have a very resilient network in your country, but the moment you cross the border, then there's a bottleneck. So we would like to see more and more cross-border collaboration amongst the countries, so that then this dream that we have been hearing about, east to west connectivity, can become a reality, because if you have to connect the west coast of Africa to the east coast, you have to cut across multiple countries. And you find that the dynamics are that in some of the countries, it's very easy to find fiber. In others, it's almost non-existent. So I think there needs to be a broader discussion about the national networks, especially. We can start with the East Africa community because it's already a good place to start. We are neighbors. We can think about how we can make our connectivity between the countries seamless. Thank you.
Anatory, then I'm going to ask you, so what is that piece of advice for governments? What is that, if you had a room full of regulators and just government, what would you ask?
Yeah, so we spoke a lot about these digital initiatives, and we have seen that a lot of public services are now going online. So this brings the demand now for huge investment on the infrastructure side, not only on the connectivity side, but also on the data centers, because there'll be a lot of data that need to be processed. So my question is, or my advice is to advise the government to really look on leveraging, the existing infrastructures that we have in the country. If, for example, an operator has a data center, and a government in the data center, either as a primary or as a DR site, why should a government go and invest more than $80 million for the data center, while they can all leverage with whatever that we have? So I think that is an area where the government need to look at it. But also, there's initiatives of connecting the government institutions across the country. The initiative is going on, but the question is, can the government do it alone? The answer is no. So government also need to see how they can partner with the other operators so they can be able to attain that goal within a very short time. They can do alone, fine, but it will take maybe more than 10 years to do. But we need it to be done now. So everything should be online, and all the institutions should be connected. So another advice, I think, is for the government, or also all the players, creating awareness to the public, making sure that they are ready to use online services, they are comfortable. I know we have some cyber security regulations that protect, can be able to protect your informations. We have the Data Protection Act that also protect information for the consumers. So if we can come together, create awareness, I'm sure in 1 to 5 years to come, I think we'll all be digital. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Colleagues, we've got a minute, just less than a minute left. Some closing comments. Dr. Adeola, I'm going to start with you, and then just Utpal will wrap up with you.
Thank you once again. For me, look at this point of connectivity, that there's no silver bullet. It all depends on the environment you have, the type of services you want to offer. And the key thing is that it has to be reliable. It has to be, you have to deliver it in an efficient manner. And you also need to consider the resilience part of it. And security of it is also super critical. And lastly, it has to be affordable. And on the closing note, I have to tell you again that Airtel Tanzania PLC, with the government, we paused, putting ourselves in a vantage position to be able to get this thing sorted, done. Looking at it from the big capacity point of view, the latency point of view, affordability point of view, that we're talking about the connectivity. We are to Africa to be able to leverage on that, and it is open to everyone. And on the other note, when we talk about where fiber can get to, that's where satellite comes in, right? And if you look at the likes of this IoT that we're talking about, fiber can't do it because you can't get fiber to those areas. It's only the satellite that you need to. And the good news, I said again, I'll repeat it once more, is that Bharti Airtel, we're also share owner in OneWeb. I'm sure everybody knows OneWeb, just more or less like a Starlink. OneWeb has a Leo satellite, over thousands of it worldwide. We're bringing it to Tanzania so that we'll be able to leverage on this part of connectivity so that we can provide the connectivity in an affordable manner to all the people of Tanzania to enjoy. And that is one of the things that we're looking at. And that will be my summary for today. And once again, thank you for listening. Thank you.
Martin?
Well, I think Dr. Abdullah summarized it very well. But my closing comment will be, if you want to build a robust network, the keyword is diversify connectivity. Let's not put all eggs in the fiber basket. Let's not depend on fiber as well. We have to consider alternate technologies like satellites. That's one of the keys to do it. We have various blends of satellite, Geo, Leo, like you talked about, OneWeb solution that is coming. Both Airtel and Hughes are invested and technology partners in OneWeb, and we are, and that's one of the most affordable. We have Yak Lake, we have Eutelsat Connect solutions, K-band, all our partnerships with Hughes, and we are happy to work as a diversified solution provider to fill in the gaps on fiber connectivity.
Thank you. Martin, from your side? Thank you, Utpal. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry, I was saying that I don't want to overemphasize, but I really would like to say that collaboration is key. And among the players, especially, I like to address the internet access, internet service providers who are closer to the customers. They need to scan the market before investing to see how they can leverage on what is already there instead of duplicating. For example, now we have data centers that are set up even here in Tanzania. So you don't have to start now thinking very hard of where to put your network equipment. It's already been done for you. So just scan the ecosystem. We have investors like WIOCC and others that have invested heavily on the submarine networks to bring the capacity closer to you in Tanzania. So I think that is something that you should take advantage of and look at, scan the market before you just roll out a network and benefit from the collaboration with the others. Thank you.
Last word.
The last word for me, as tiGO Tanzania, we have invested a lot into our network across the country, blanket 4G everywhere, and all the big cities with 5G. So my challenge to all of us is to create a lot of use cases so that we can be able to leverage this good network that we have. And again, we can support our communities with these use cases. Thank you so much, and I'm so happy to be on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much, colleagues, for your patience, your time. Thank you.
We can see if there's any questions from the audience. Yeah. Any questions from the audience? We are doing well on time, so I can take a couple of comments, questions. Suggestions, feedback from the audience?
Madan is making up for yesterday's.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Anyone? Yeah.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation on your panel. My question really is on the issue of he talked about the OneWeb satellite, Leo. Again, my question is, how do we leverage, for example, OneWeb to be able to connect, the hardest to connect? Because I know for you, for example, to Africa, you're talking about, working with internet service providers. How about these little people? For example, in a village, I get people somewhere in a rural village, they want to connect. They can only pay, a little bit of money, but because of the number, in terms of what we can be able to organize as a village, in a village center, how would the OneWeb leverage, not leverage really, but reach, that kind of people, so that they can bring them online? Because the issue is bringing opportunities, bringing people to digital opportunities online. Because if Bill Gates was in a certain village somewhere in Africa, we wouldn't have the Microsoft that we have today. How do we unearth these Microsoft or the Bill Gates gurus in Africa, in rural Africa?
Thank you very much, sir. I think that's a very good question. And if I want to summarize it, we're more or less talking about affordability, correct, sir? And that's very good. Remember my closing remark, I did mention that there's no one silver bullet for all this issue that we're talking about. Where OneWeb, and if that's Airtel comes in, because we're also part of owners of OneWeb, is to more or less come in and cover up for where there's a coverage gap. You understand, sir? The specific example that you did mention, which is very critical for us, has to do with the rural area. How are you going to provide services for them? And I would like to say it clearly. The rural area don't really care whether you use OneWeb, whether you use one microwave or fiber. What they want is what? That's services. So the headache is with the provider, meaning the MNO. How will I provide such services in an efficient manner and in a reliable manner that the user, meaning those people that can consume the services that they want, in a very structured manner that it will be okay for both of us. OneWeb is coming in where the likes of microwave cannot serve from the transport layer perspective, where fiber cannot serve from transport layer perspective. The only option you have in that case is what? Satellite. You understand, sir? Satellite. And the way we're going to look at it, we're going to mirror a lot of use cases. Our enterprise department is going to look at it effective. I mean, they're going to look at it critically, because there's no point for you to give a services that people can't afford. It doesn't make any sense. You understand what I mean? So we do understand that that challenge is, but we will be able to provide services with solution that is available in an efficient manner and affordable manner. If OneWeb is the solution, we make sure that it is affordable vis-a-vis what value that we are bringing on board. That's how I'm going to answer that, sir. I hope I satisfy you, sir.
I think both of you should talk so that he can win yet another award. Thanks. Congratulations so much. Thanks so much, Juanita. You wrap up with a few observations of your own, or we're good? Yeah, fantastic.
No, I think he summarized very well OneWeb. I just wanted to take a dig on the satellite part of it. Very quickly, one of the ways these are high bandwidth solution. One of the ways we make it affordable for the rural guys is by sharing of the resources or sharing of the bandwidth. Obviously, OneWeb will be on the, OneWeb will support backhauling with 4G. So it will provide 4G to a larger area community or a radius which can be shared, so that those plans can be made affordable, 4G or 5G plans. Other thing is, I spoke about community Wi-Fi. I mean, we can have a single panel with a radius of 100 or 200 meter covering, providing Wi-Fi solution. People can buy small packages, and that's what makes it affordable. So they can be a community sharing initiative as part of Bhowmick. That I think that can be the answer to making it affordable in those rural areas.
I just want to close up and wrap up with one final very, very controversial always comment. But you know, when it comes to accessing the deep, deep, deep underserved areas, the telecom sectors across Africa is some of the most highly regulated sectors, you know, from a competition point of view, etc. But when and one of the mechanisms in which the telco sector is regulated by government is that amongst operators, you are not allowed to talk about where you're going, geographies, what's the word? So we can't talk about communities, but I think that there's an opportunity for government to identify the deep, deep, deep urban and deep underserved areas, and then get the operators in the room and say, go and serve them and decide amongst yourself who's going to go where, which we're not allowed to do right now. Operators are not allowed to talk to each other. But there has to be a mechanism in the absence of government donating funding, like the US has done, $52 billion to connect every American. You know, it's impossible for us to have that in Africa, but we have to find mechanisms, and I'm saying government can identify those areas and then say, guys, go fix it. Decide amongst yourself how you're going to collaborate to do this, but let's connect our people, and that's critical for me.
Sorry, Juanita, I'm sorry, let me just come in here. And valid and very, very good point that you've raised. And I don't work for government, right? But I need to speak on behalf of Tanzania government. And in all honesty, the government has been super supportive based on what you said. We call it USCAF. I'm seeing the CEO USCAF. That is the kind of vehicle that the government has put in place, more or less to provide that internet connectivity to the rural area in Tanzania. What they've done, they have a dedicated unit that look into it where internet or where there's no connectivity. They scan it around. They always do a due diligence activity. They come back to us as an operator saying that this is where I want you to go ahead and cover. And they provide incentives to us to go ahead. And that's a wonderful and brilliant job that the government of Tanzania has been doing to support us. I think they deserve a round of applause. Please, can you give them a round of applause for that?
Well done.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We have a session by UCS SAF afterwards, so thanks for stealing the thunder.
We're stealing the thunder. Thanks, everybody.